I was standing in my parents' driveway, holding a thin envelope from the probate office, when my younger sister pulled in beside me in a brand-new midnight blue Mercedes. The engine purred like it didn't belong there. Blair jumped out laughing, swinging the keys like a prize. My mom rushed to hug her, smiling wider than I'd seen in years. Then my dad patted my shoulder and said softly, "We meant to tell you. Grandma wanted the family to enjoy the money together." The envelope in my hand said otherwise. I stood there frozen. I was Rowan Hale, the quiet one. The one who paid her own bills, never asked for help, and sat beside Grandma Evelyn every weekend. Before she got sick, she had looked me in the eyes and promised she had set something aside for my future. Not for everyone. For me. I asked carefully where the money for the car came from. My mother waved her hand like it was nothing. "You're overthinking," she said. "It's all family money anyway." Blair smirked and said, "Don't be weird about it, Rowan. It's just a car." But it wasn't just a car. It was more than I made in years. It was paid in full. And no one could explain how. When I asked to see the paperwork, my dad's voice tightened. "Now isn't the time." That's when something inside me cracked. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just enough for me to understand one thing clearly. Something had been taken. And it wasn't meant for her. The next morning, I asked them directly. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse anyone. I just said, "Can I see Grandma's will?" The room went quiet. My mother, Marilyn, sighed like I had disappointed her. "Rowan, why are you being so focused on money?" she asked. "Your grandmother wouldn't want you acting like this." My dad, Thomas, leaned back in his chair and said, "Nothing has been finalized yet. You need to be patient." I told them I only wanted to understand what Grandma had written. That was all. But every answer they gave felt slippery. They kept changing the subject. They kept telling me to stop stressing them out while Grandma was still alive. Then Blair laughed from the doorway. "Wow," she said. "Counting money that isn't even yours yet. That's low even for you." Her words stung, but what hurt more was that my parents didn't correct her. They let it sit there like truth. I went back to my room and closed the door. I could still hear them talking softly in the kitchen, lowering their voices when I walked past. That hurt more than shouting ever could. I thought about Grandma Evelyn's hands holding mine in the hospital bed, about how clearly she had spoken, about how she said, "I made sure you're protected, Rowan. No one can change that." She had been so certain. So why did everyone else seem scared of letting me read one piece of paper? That night, I realized the secrecy wasn't accidental. It was deliberate. And whatever was written in that will, they didn't want me to see it. I went to see Grandma Evelyn the next day at the hospice. The room smelled clean and quiet, like time had slowed down inside it. She looked smaller in the bed, but her eyes were still sharp when she saw me. "Come here, sweetheart," she said, reaching for my hand. I tried to smile, but my chest felt tight. She noticed right away. "What's wrong?" she asked. I told her about the car. About how my parents wouldn't let me read the will. About how everyone kept telling me not to ask questions. My voice shook even though I tried to stay calm. Grandma frowned. "That doesn't make sense," she said slowly. I was very clear. I asked her what she meant. She squeezed my fingers. "Rowan, I set that inheritance up for you. Not shared. Not borrowed. For you alone." Her voice was tired but firm. "I did it that way because I knew you'd never ask for help." My heart dropped. "Then how did Blair get that money?" Grandma's eyes filled with confusion. "She shouldn't have," she said. "No one was allowed to touch it before I passed. That was written plainly." She turned her head slightly, thinking hard. "I worked with a lawyer. Everything was structured properly." Then her expression changed. Not fear, understanding. "Someone interfered," she whispered. The room felt colder. She looked back at me and said, "You didn't imagine this, Rowan. And you're not being greedy." Tears finally slipped down my face. Grandma wiped them away with her thumb. "If something feels wrong," she said gently, "it usually is." And in that moment, I knew the problem wasn't confusion anymore. It was betrayal. The next time I visited Grandma, she looked more serious than before. After I sat down, she said, "Rowan, I need you to do something for me." I leaned closer. She told me to bring a few folders from the old cabinet in the hallway at home. "The brown one with my name on it," she said. "Don't tell anyone." That alone made my stomach twist. When I brought the papers back, she went through them slowly, her hands shaking but her mind steady. She nodded to herself, like she was confirming something she already feared. Then she asked the nurse to give us a moment alone. Grandma picked up her phone. Her voice was weak, but when she spoke, it changed. It became calm, clear, serious. "I need to speak to Mr. Harris," she said. I had never heard that name before. She explained that he was the attorney who had helped her years ago. Not my parents' lawyer. Hers. She told him there had been interference, and that certain instructions needed to be reviewed immediately. I sat quietly, barely breathing. When the call ended, Grandma looked at me and said, "From now on, you say nothing." I opened my mouth, but she raised her hand gently. "Let them believe whatever they want," she said. "Watch. Listen. Don't confront." I asked her why. She gave a small, tired smile. "Because truth works best when people think they've already won." Something shifted inside me then. I had felt small for days, confused and powerless. But sitting there beside her, I felt it change. For the first time since the car appeared in the driveway, I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was waiting, and Grandma knew exactly what she was doing. A few days later, I came home earlier than usual. The house felt strange the moment I stepped inside. Voices were coming from the living room, low and serious. I wasn't invited. I stood near the hallway and listened. My dad was talking first. "We had to rebalance things," he said. "Rowan has always been fine on her own." My mom replied, "She never needed help like Blair does. This just makes things fair." I felt my chest tighten. Then Blair laughed. "Exactly. Rowan's always the strong one. She'll get over it." Someone mentioned the car payment again, and my mother said, "It's already done. What's she going to do about it now?" Their words hit harder than shouting ever could. They weren't confused. They weren't mistaken. They had decided. They talked about Grandma's money like it was theirs to manage. Like I was a problem that needed adjusting, not a daughter who had been promised something. Blair's voice sharpened. "Grandma always favored her anyway. This just evens it out. No guilt. No hesitation." I stepped back quietly before they saw me. My hands were shaking, but my mind felt clear. This wasn't a bad decision made in stress. It was resentment that had been sitting there for years. They had watched me work 2 jobs. Watched me help Grandma. Watched me never ask for anything. And they used that against me. Standing alone in my room, I finally understood the truth. They didn't take my inheritance by accident. They took it because they believed I would stay silent. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every word I had overheard kept replaying in my head. When the house finally went quiet, I took a flashlight and went down to the basement. Most of the boxes were old decorations and broken furniture. Then I found one marked with Grandma's handwriting. My heart started beating fast. Inside were folders wrapped with rubber bands. I opened them slowly. There it was, Grandma Evelyn's will. Her signature was clear. Her instructions were clear too. The inheritance was meant for me. My hands trembled as I kept reading. Nothing in the will had been changed. But the execution papers had. Dates were delayed. Transfers were redirected. The money had been moved before it should have been touched. My parents hadn't rewritten Grandma's wishes. They had worked around them. It was smart enough to look legal at first glance, and cruel enough to destroy trust completely. I sat on the cold floor and felt something settle inside me. Anger, yes, but also clarity. They hadn't broken the law openly. They had bent it just enough to benefit themselves and Blair. That made it worse. I wanted to march upstairs and confront them. I wanted answers. Apologies. Something. But I remembered Grandma's voice in my head. Stay silent. Observe. So I put everything back exactly as I found it. Every folder. Every paper. I went back to my room and lay in the dark. They thought I knew nothing. And for now, I decided to let them keep believing that. Because sometimes the strongest move isn't speaking. It's waiting. Grandma's health got worse faster than any of us expected. Each time I visited, she seemed weaker, her breath slower, her hands colder in mine. She stopped asking questions about the house, about my parents, about the money. Instead, she only gave quiet instructions. Listen more than you speak, she told me one afternoon. And trust what you see, not what they say. Sometimes we didn't talk at all. I would sit beside her bed and brush her hair, the same way she used to do for me when I was little. Even when she was tired, she squeezed my hand like she was reminding me she was still there. One day she said, "Rowan, what I'm leaving you isn't just money." I looked at her, confused. "Money disappears," she said softly. "But knowing your worth doesn't." She told me not to fight for approval. Not to beg family to treat me fairly. "People who benefit from your silence will never thank you for it," she said. Tears rolled down my face, but she smiled gently. "You're stronger than you think. You always were. Before I left that day, she said one last thing. Whatever happens after I'm gone, don't let guilt pull you backward. I understood then that she was preparing me. Not for paperwork or legal meetings, but for loneliness. For the moment when love and blood wouldn't mean the same thing anymore. Walking out of hospice that evening, I felt heavy with sadness. But also steady, because Grandma had given me something deeper than inheritance. She had given me permission to choose myself. We gathered in the small office a week after Grandma passed. No one cried much. My parents sat close together, calm and confident. Blair kept checking her nails like this was just another errand. They looked relieved, like everything was already settled. The attorney, Mr. Harris, greeted us politely and opened a folder. His voice was steady as he began reading Grandma Evelyn's will. Most of it was expected. Personal items, donations, small family gifts. My parents relaxed even more. Then he paused. There is a secondary directive, he said, looking up. This clause activates if any portion of the trust is accessed or redirected before the testator's death. My mother's smile faded. Mr. Harris explained that Grandma had added a safeguard years ago. If the funds were touched early, control would immediately transfer away from those involved. The room went silent. He slid documents across the table. Dates. Account movements. Proof. The luxury car wasn't a gift. It was evidence. My father's face drained of color. My mother tried to speak, but no sound came out. Blair shot to her feet, shouting that it wasn't fair. Mr. Harris didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse anyone. He simply stated facts. Grandma had anticipated interference. She had prepared for it. Because of that, the remaining inheritance was now protected under strict oversight, with me as the sole beneficiary. No yelling. No drama. Just truth laid out cleanly and slowly, where no one could argue with it. I sat quietly, hands folded, heart racing. In that moment, I didn't feel victorious. I felt seen. Even in death, Grandma had spoken for me. Everything changed after that meeting. The Mercedes stopped being something shiny in the driveway. It was photographed, documented, and discussed in quiet legal rooms. What once made Blair feel powerful now followed her like a shadow. My parents were suddenly stressed. Bills piled up. Phone calls came late at night. The confidence they once had disappeared. They started treating me differently. My mother tried to hug me more. My father said things like, "We're still family, and let's not let money ruin us." But they never said the words I needed to hear. They never said sorry. Blair, on the other hand, exploded. She shouted that Grandma had ruined everything, that I had turned everyone against her. She said I was selfish for not letting it go. I listened without responding. When my parents asked me to help calm her down, I shook my head. I wasn't the one who broke things. I wasn't responsible for fixing them either. For years, I had been the quiet one, the peacemaker, the daughter who swallowed her feelings to keep the house peaceful. Not anymore. The car that once made Blair feel special now reminded everyone of what it had cost. Trust. Stability. Respect. I felt sadness, not satisfaction. But I also felt something new, distance. I could see them clearly now. Not as the family I hoped for, but as the people they chose to be when money was involved. And I finally understood that protecting my peace was not cruelty. It was survival. After everything settled, the house felt quieter than ever. My parents spoke to me carefully now, like they were afraid of saying the wrong thing. Our relationship didn't end, but it changed. Some distance stayed, and I let it. Blair stopped calling altogether. There were no big arguments anymore. No dramatic endings. Just space where closeness used to be. When the legal matters were finished, the money finally came to me the way Grandma intended. But by then, it didn't feel like the most important thing. What stayed with me was her voice. Her calm. Her certainty. She had taught me that love should not require silence. That being strong doesn't mean being invisible. And that family does not get unlimited access to your life just because you share blood. I used part of the inheritance to build stability. I saved. I planned. I chose carefully. But I also chose something else. Boundaries. I no longer explained myself. I no longer chased approval. I didn't apologize for protecting what was mine, emotionally or otherwise. Sometimes I miss the idea of the family we could have been. But I don't miss who I had to become to survive them. Grandma didn't just leave me money. She left me clarity. She left me the courage to walk forward without guilt. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting to be chosen. I had already chosen myself. If this story moved you, Take a moment to reflect on how boundaries protect your peace. Inheritance and family finances should always be documented clearly to prevent manipulation. Support the channel by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Your support helps bring real-life lessons and emotional stories like this to more people.